Dark Phoenix is out, and as of this taping is rotten at 23%, the lowest score for an X-Men film in franchise history. Yikes. But is it really that bad? Worse than even X-Men Origins Wolverine? We got some work ahead of us. Let's talk. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Ellis, and welcome to the After Show. So good to be back with you. This is a spoiler-heavy show, so if you've not yet seen the movie, you have been warned. Joining us today is one of our all-time favorites. You know her as the host of the YouTube channel Geek Bomb. Maude Garrett is back with us. Hello, Maude.
Hi, thanks for having me back to talk Dark Phoenix.
I am very excited to have you. And joining us live via Skype from Pay or Wait, it is Sharronda Williams. Hello, Sharonda. What part of the world are you in?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia. Hot Atlanta.
Oh,
hot Atlanta. Hi.
It's a little more temperate here in the studio as of right now, but that tends to change when this next gentleman enters the building. That would be the one, the only, Mr. Movie Release Dates himself, Scott Movie Mantz. How are you, bud?
I'm doing great. What an introduction. How do you top that? Great to see all of you. Thanks so much.
Well, you say, how do you top that? I think that's what X-Men Dark Phoenix is wondering about right now, because there's been a lot of great X-Men movies in the franchise thus far. Is Dark Phoenix competitive with those? Is it on the other end of the spectrum? Is it one of the worst X-Men movies we've seen? So before we get into our detailed spoiler-heavy review, I just want to go around the room and start with you, Scott. Do you think that this is a fresh movie or a rotten movie?
Oh, it is rotten. It is rotten. But when you're talking about the worst X-Men film, that includes, you got the three Wolverine movies, even the Deadpool films, two of them, they are part of the X-Men cinematic universe. So that's 12 movies. I think that above them all, X-Men Origins Wolverine is the worst. But is Dark Phoenix a bad comic book movie? Well, that's debatable. I've seen worse. It's not great. It's not terrible. Could have been better.
So you're saying it's a rotten movie. Sharonda, I want to throw it to you next. Is this a rotten movie in your eyes as well?
Yes, this is definitely a rotten movie without a shadow of a doubt.
Sharonda's going rotten. Scott's going rotten. Maude, can you defend this film?
I really want to. I wanted to so bad. I wanted to love this movie, especially because it's the final arc in the Fox-only X-Men franchise before Disney's going to take over. It's rotten, guys. Yeah. It's rotten, but it's not the worst X-Men movie.
I am shocked to be hearing this right now. We have three rottens on the panel. Am I the only one that's going to defend this film and say it's fresh? No, I'm not.
Oh, what a tease!
I got to go with the rotten movie. Now, again, I'm going to echo some of y'all's sentiments right off the bat. Is that I don't think that this is a terrible movie. I just felt like it was very bland. It was very dull. There wasn't a lot of life in the movie, and I wanted that from an X-Men film. I was a huge fan of the comics. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the movies, and this one just let me down. So as we get into our first topic here, is this the worst X-Men movie in the franchise? Sharonda, I'm going to let you lead off here because we've had X-Men Apocalypse. Like I mentioned, we had the Wolverine Origins movie, which not a lot of people dug. We had The Last Stand, which somehow is 58%, almost fresh on the Rotten Tomatoes Tomatometer. So Sharonda, is Dark Phoenix the worst of the bunch?
No, and I hate the disrespect that Dark Phoenix is getting. It's kind of just, when the trailers came out, everyone just wanted to make this a horrible movie before anyone actually had the chance to see it. But no, nothing will ever top X-Men Origins Wolverine. No, ever.
Well, what are the biggest issues in Dark Phoenix for you personally? Because, again, you did say it was a rotten movie, so what really stood out to you?
For me, it's just with the X-Men franchise as a whole, it's just the portrayal, of Jean Grey, of the Dark Phoenix. And, you kind of had this glimpse of hope at the end of Apocalypse where you felt as though, okay, they're going to take on this saga. They're going to do it right. But I've never seen a film about someone who was almost a supporting character.
Good point.
You don't get to learn anything about Jean. You don't really get to dive that much deeper into Jean Grey than any movie really has done, throughout this franchise. And once again, you're given stories of Raven, of Eric, and Charles, and it overshadows who we're supposed to be focusing on, and that is Jean Grey.
That's an excellent point,
an
Maude.
excellent point.
Did you agree with that? Is that the movie's called Dark Phoenix, yet we seem to be focusing on everybody else besides Jean Grey?
I feel like the last couple of X-Men movies want to focus on whoever's so hot right now. They had Jennifer Lawrence in a contract, so they made Mystique all of a sudden this centric character when she's always, sort of been a villain on the side. And I think that's happening again here. Game of Thrones is so big. They've got Sansa Stark herself here, but Sophie Turner, even though her acting was incredible, I really saw a lot of light and shade in what she brought to the table acting-wise. But when you pair her up against a villain that has absolutely no point behind it and no motive, you kind of get a little bit lost. And it is like the first 2 acts, you're just like, why do I care?
So is this the worst of the X-Men movie to you?
Nay. It is not.
Who earns that distinction?
Yeah, I'm going to go, I agree with Sharonda here, where Wolverine, the Origin movie, and Apocalypse was worse than this movie.
Okay, see, look, I thought Apocalypse was better than this movie for sure,
I
Scott.
did too.
Now, with Origins Wolverine, here's what I will say. I really like seeing Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, even when he has, like, Roger Rabbit animated claws that don't look realistic at all. Are you going to say that this is worse than those 2 movies?
No, okay, so first of all, I'm with you. X-Men Apocalypse gets a bad rap. It's not the best X-Men film, but it's certainly not the worst. I mean, I think we all agree that X-Men Origins Wolverine from 2009 is the worst. But the other 2 Wolverines are really good, especially the third one directed by James Mangold, Logan.
So
Here's the problem with Dark Phoenix, and you said it, you touched it already, Mark, when you said that it's bland, it's tired. So much about Dark Phoenix feels obsolete. Now, if this movie had come out, let's say, 2004, 2005, 5 years after the original film from 2000, I think it would have felt different. But we've seen these superhero movies grow and evolve over the years.
We've seen this exact story before with Last Stand, I feel.
We've seen the Dark Phoenix storyline before. Did you think that it was handled better in this movie than it was in The Last Stand when they hinted at it?
Last Stand is another movie from 2006. It's another film that, sorry, with the release dates.
Good. I love it.
It gets a bad rap. This is the film after 2 X-Men that were directed by Bryan Singer. So then the third movie, The Last Stand, is directed by Brett Ratner. It's not as good as the first 2. It's like
still liked it.
I did too. It's like the Return of the Jedi of the series. Not as good as its 2 predecessors, but it still stands on its own terms. In terms of titles for Dark Phoenix, instead of X-Men First Class, which was a terrific film.
Great film.
It was energetic, it was vibrant, it was fresh. This movie should have been called X-Men Third Class.
Sharonda, Scott's getting a lot of faces out of Maude right now. If I gave you the
Return of
option,
the Jedi, how dare you?
Sharonda, if I said, okay, look, I'm going to give you one Dark Phoenix storyline to check out, would you go with X-Men The Last Stand, or would you go with Dark Phoenix?
I would go with The Last Stand.
Yes.
Why is that? Is that just because it came first, because we had more of our classic X-Men feel? What was it about Last Stand that's going to put it a notch above Dark Phoenix in your book?
In Last Stand, you get to see more of Jean's internal struggle, battling the power that's inside, not being able to properly control her emotions, seeing the pain of realizing the effects of when she kind of switches over. And in Dark Phoenix, you don't get to see any of that. I mean, it's kind of just like, okay, I'm bad, and that's it.
There was some liveliness that I see in X-Men Last Stand, that I saw in Apocalypse, that I even saw at the beginning of Origins Wolverine, that I just did not feel in this movie. And as we move on to our next segment, I think that that's what I'm focusing on here from the negative standpoint, is the acting performances.
Oh.
I felt like everybody just kind of showed up. And I know that people have been killing Jennifer Lawrence for the last couple of movies, is just kind of licking a stamp, put it on the envelope, here's my performance.
Yeah.
I got the same thing from Sophie Turner, and maybe it's just because I felt like I was watching somebody who hasn't moved on from Sansa Stark, or I just got similar vibes to Sansa Stark. I just didn't get a lot of life in that performance. Maude, am I crazy here? Am I being too harsh?
I actually think the acting was one of the better parts of this movie. It was the script that was so bad. They really didn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah.
There was no internal dialogue or moments where they really had an enriching part to grow. And I think a lot of the times, we've seen the X-Men so much, we know these characters, it's their connection and it's their interactivity with the other characters that really do amplify them. We're not really getting that here. I mean, when you have the Dark Phoenix thing, she keeps running away, and so she only has moments to herself. And I think that she's trying to do the best that she can. She had a great moment with Cyclops, Ty Sheridan, where she's just broke down into tears, and I really felt that for a moment. but then you realize that she's the only one who has dialogue, her and Jessica Chastain, the only ones that really have dialogue, and the rest are just this supporting cast, but they're not even, like you were saying, Sharonda, supporting a main act. They're supporting a supporting character.
See, I'm with you. I felt like Sophie Turner, also, in addition to Jennifer Lawrence in this movie, they did not give inspired performances because the script, as you just touched on, Maude, the script is not inspired. Everything about this film feels tired and obsolete. How do you take an Oscar-winning actress like Jennifer Lawrence, won her Best Actress Oscar for 2012's Silver Linings Playbook, and make her look bad, give her a bad script? And that's what happens with this movie. And yes, I agree completely with the other points made by both of you that Sophie Turner is a supporting character in her own film.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the women got shortchanged in this movie. And it wasn't just Sophie Turner and Jennifer Lawrence. I think that Jessica Chastain, Sharonda, because she's playing an alien, I can give that a pass. Like, you're not supposed to have a lot of emotion. You're supposed to come off as cold. But Alexandra Shipp as Storm, she had like 2 lines in the whole movie. It was very disappointing. Do you pin this more, Sharonda, on the performances or on the script that the performers were given?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think that the performances weren't bad. It's one of the saving graces of the film. But literally watching the film in the back of my mind on replay was just, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Everyone was just like, look, this is the last movie. Just do what we have to do. It doesn't matter if this is good. We don't have jobs after this anyway with the X-Men. And you could see that on screen. A lot of cringy dialogue in the film that just for characters to say the things that they said. And then also, too, as far as how the women are portrayed, I think that's always been an issue with the X-Men franchise. That at this point, I've just accepted and that's just how it's going to be. But I think for the most part, it's just a bad script. It's just so bad. Characters that you are introduced to in the previous film, they still haven't been fleshed out. Relationships still haven't been fleshed out between characters. It just doesn't make any sense. They clearly did not try at all in this film.
Can I talk about the fact that there's absolutely, with the relationships between these characters that we've almost had 3 movies or at least 2 movies to kind of get to know. The Last Stand, I actually liked it because what the Phoenix struggle was, she was too powerful for her own good. This is the first time we heard about the level class system, like a level 5. I was like so about that because it's about how strong these powers are. And then you had this love triangle where Wolverine was so in love with Jean Grey, but she was with Cyclops, and then like sacrificed him, basically killed him when she couldn't control it, and he was the only one who could save her because his powers could regenerate fast enough for her. And I was like, that was great. But then Cyclops in this did nothing.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
He did one
great
thing.
line.
He dropped an F-bomb.
Dropped the F-bomb, and that was like when I woke up and I went, whoa, okay.
Little baby
here's the thing,
Cyclops.
we're all talking about the quality of the script, which is not very good. The quality of the performances, I think more like you, Mark, I noticed it more than both of you did, and I completely agree with how the women have been shortchanged all along in the X-Men cinematic universe.
Should be called X-Woman.
We'll get to that conversation in a second. But I think the other thing going on here is us. For the last 19 years, since the first X-Men opened in 2000, we have seen these superhero movies grow and evolve. X-Men went into Spider-Man. Spider-Man went into The Dark Knight. Dark Knight went into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we built up such a tolerance where these superhero movies have gotten better and better and stayed fresh.
You think we're spoiled?
Logan and Avengers Endgame, and now here's X-Men. When they come on the screen in those costumes, they already look dated. And that's part of the problem.
It's part of the problem, but I also think that just not giving screen time, not just to Storm, but I also missed Quicksilver. I mean, Evan Peters, what a standout that Quicksilver had been. And then you talk about that Quicksilver-Magneto relationship that could have been explored. And then let's talk about Magneto and Professor X. I mean, Fassbender and McAvoy, they didn't have a lot to do in this movie either. So, Sharonda, I think it was a mix of all the characters just not really getting to show their full potential. When we saw Fassbender and on screen again for the first time, and he's Magneto, I was excited. I was like, here we go. And it just didn't really move the way I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, for the relationship portion of it, this is something, especially the Quicksilver and the Magneto, which still bothers me because they had opportunities in Apocalypse to kind of bring this into the forefront. And I thought for the last film, we were going to explore this, but Quicksilver disappeared the whole movie.
Yeah.
I didn't get one good Quicksilver sequence with some good music in the background. That is what we show up to see from him. My favorite Quicksilver between both, through the regular X-Men through Fox and MCU, but also too, I was okay with not seeing the relationship between Charles and Eric because I've just seen it so many times. I really wanted to see the growing relationships coming with this new class, and there's a conversation when they're having this discussion. Raven and Hank, they're just like, I think we've grown out of all of this. It's time for us to give them a chance. And we never get to see them have that chance to take over the reins throughout the course of the film. And so the relationships as a whole, it just let me down. They didn't even try. I felt like I went through a bad breakup. Like, we were in high school and we graduated and we knew that we can't make this long distance relationship work. But like, we're going to try to stay together over the summer. And no, he just left me. He just left me and didn't care. That's how I felt while watching Dark Phoenix.
Can I say one little thing? Alexandra Shipp, who plays Storm, has gone on record in an interview to say, because they were like, are you excited about exploring your character with this Disney-Fox merger? And she said, well, why? So I can be in another ensemble movie and be sidelined and literally be an effing Sasquatch in the background of a shot.
Is that a quote?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yes.
Storm had really cool powers in this too. She's doing the weather thing, but there's so much that they put in this movie that some folks are saying is unnecessary, and that's our next point, is the aliens. The alien involvement in here. Did we need aliens for this movie, Scott? Did that elevate the source material?
Not at all. And then you have, someone like Jessica Chastain not be able to pull it off. Again, they're all working with bad material, and you could see it in all of the performances. This is a great cast, and I have to say that I did think that Michael Fassbender's gave the most inspired performance of the movie. He really made lemonade out of lemons.
But he's a human.
Yeah,
not an alien.
Aliens, it was a part of the storyline that it felt like it was a very underdeveloped backstory. I didn't care.
Well, some people are saying more than just underdeveloped backstory, Sharon, is that it felt a lot like Captain Marvel, and that it was maybe trying to echo Captain Marvel, and we're looking at aliens. Are these Skrulls? Did you get a lot of that Fox kind of mimicking what's going on with the MCU right now, even though this movie was shot like 2 years ago?
Yes. First of all, as soon as I saw these little things crash into Earth, and I saw the aliens come out of the shadows, I was just like, wait a minute. Are these the Skrulls? Like, what is going on? Am I confused? Did I miss a plot of the story? Why are we doing this? The aliens were so unnecessary for this film. And I really felt as though this is another reason why they could have taken the time to explore some of the new mutants that we actually had a chance to see in the film that were just in the background, just taking up space.
I don't know that we're going to get to see New Mutants either in this movie or the actual New Mutants movie, Maude, because like this movie, that movie keeps getting delayed too.
That's not happening.
When you look at Jessica Chastain and you look at what a fantastic actress she is, and then being put into a role where she's just playing this emotionless alien, I liked the idea of having aliens in this movie.
Oh, really?
And from the first sequence, when we got to go to outer space, I was like, oh, cool, now we're going to have this threat that we have to band together and solve. And it just felt like it devolved from that.
Yeah, I actually didn't like the alien aspects. I think that when we go into an X-Men movie, we want to celebrate all of these mutant powers and that and how you weave in and out of that. I think, the whole premise of that is you're born with this ability that you didn't ask for, and you have more power than you know what to do with. And do you use it for good or do you use it for bad? It's kind of like the Chronicle aspect of it all. And, we're seeing with Brightburn at the moment. That's why we watch X-Men movies. I don't think we watch it for aliens. And if you're going to bring aliens into it, I need to know why they're here, what they really do want. Not just, I want to obliterate this planet and take it over. It's like it's just not really working. And then you're like, oh, maybe Jessica Chastain's character is supposed to influence or guide or be like a dark force and get in her mind. But that doesn't really happen either. And it feels like the villains get in the way of what could have been a really great storyline.
This whole part with the aliens, this middle part of the film, the cardinal sin of this X-Men film is that it's boring. It was boring. It is a movie, it is a lifeless film. It is a movie without a pulse. It is boring.
I would say it's boring in some places, but there are other parts of the movie that I actually did really find myself enjoying in the theater.
Third act.
Those would be the action sequences.
Yeah.
The action sequences, I thought the train scene was really cool. Same. I like the armories. That's like a callback to the first X-Men. I thought Nightcrawler had a lot of neat stuff to do. And even Storm, even though she didn't get to talk a lot, she had cool powers that she got to showcase. Sharon, I want to kick off with you with this segment. I liked the action sequences, and I thought that they added something to the movie, which is why I probably didn't completely hate it. How did you feel about the way the action sequences and the set pieces were pulled off?
So I had actually mixed emotions in regards to the action. For parts of the film, really the first and second half of the film, I felt as though there needed to be more action. Especially the scene where they're in this street. It's just everyone is in such close quarters. And it's almost like I know that they were trying to convey the chaos that they were wreaking, in this town, but it was too much to even keep up with who's doing what. Yeah. The only thing that truly saves this movie is the train scene. Magneto, he did that.
Yeah, when he crumbles the train.
Oh, that was great. Yeah.
He pulled all the guns up again. I had really big flashbacks of the original X-Men movies where they had to make everything plastic because of this one X-Men. That's the threat that you see, how you have to change the normal day-to-day to coexist with dangerous X-Men. We kind of lost that. And Dark Phoenix, the whole point of it is that immediately she's so dangerous and all of a sudden they have to contain her. But it's like she barely even really did anything to earn that.
She was barely in the film.
Yeah.
She wasn't in the film enough. And look, that last train sequence, Act 3, yeah, that was a great scene. But it came too late. It didn't save the movie.
And it nearly didn't exist.
Yeah, what?
It nearly didn't exist. That wasn't the first go of the movie. They reshot that entire last act. It was supposed to be up in space, but they were scared that it was looking too much like Captain Marvel, so they kept it to the Earth again. But that was all new. And you can almost tell that because 2/3 of the movie, you're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, action! And it's like, wow, this is what I wanted from the start.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a different movie because it was a different movie. It was filmed later.
Yeah. How about that New York street battle though, Sharonda? I thought there was some nice sequences in there where we got it because Magneto pulls the subway up and you had I'm not really sure what the knife lady, what her special ability was other than having a lot of knives, which was still cool. So
she actually has her name is Celine, and she has telekinesis, telepathy. She can drain the life force out of you, and so that's why when she's battling against Xavier, because she was just like, I can control minds too with Nightcrawler. I was just like, she's such a cool character, but we
didn't see it.
I think that's probably why I forgot what her ability was. It was like she came and I was like,
see him.
oh, you're kind of like the other person, but you have knives, and that's what I'm remembering, Scott.
Listen, the one scene that sticks out in this movie, the New York scene was good. The last scene was great, and now it makes sense. I know that they reshot that last scene, and maybe it did save the movie.
But that space mission at the beginning I thought was neat when Nightcrawler crawls his way in to save the astronauts. That was
again,
okay.
After seeing, and I know this was shot a while ago, but after seeing Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, this it paled in comparison. It felt very similar and not as good as those two films.
All right, well, look, I only have so much breath left, and I'm not going to waste it all defending this movie that I also thought was pretty rotten. So, Scott, I'm going to put all the pressure on you right now first, after then we'll get to Maude and Sharonda with this question. What should Marvel Studios, the MCU, do with the X-Men? How do the X-Men move forward? Do you put them into the MCU and pepper them in post-credit scenes, or do you announce a standalone movie and reintroduce the X-Men?
I've been waiting for this moment. I've been waiting for you to ask this question. I think we are all excited to touch on this. Not just us, but everyone. The first thing that came to everyone's mind when Disney announced they were going to buy Fox, they all went, yes, X-Men in the MCU, let's go. So here's the first thing they should do. Now that Kevin Feige, president of Marvel Studios, has acknowledged that the X-Men will be in the MCU.
And he also said it's going to take some time. He said it could take 4 to 5 years.
And guess what? That is the best thing that they could do. Let it go away for a while. Let the X-Men just simmer. Let people be hungry for it again. Let people, get excited for an X-Men film. That's the first thing they should do.
That's a nice way of saying let the stink of Dark Phoenix wear off.
Yeah, but it should go away for a while. It should just look like rest and make people hungry for it again. Just like with the Star Trek feature films. The last movie was 2012, and then you had 2002, and then when the 2009 movie came out, people were excited for it. So that's what should happen. The second thing that that should happen with the MCU Marvel movie is they should make a standalone film. Everyone wants to see Marvel's, X-Men versus the Avengers. It's going to be a very long time before that happens because they have to build up to it. But in the meantime, they should make a standalone film, and they should make it only with female X-Men, X-women. Let's just do one film, just focus on an all-female superhero X universe.
Well,
just start with women here.
I think one of the best lines in this movie, Maude, is when Mystique says it should be called X-Women.
Yep.
The dudes have had their shot with X-Men. Do you think it's time to rebrand X-Men in that way as introducing them to the MCU?
I think the only thing enticing about that notion is the fact that, we get to see some of the characters from the original 90s cartoons that we never got to see properly done, like Rogue. I mean, I'm not against seeing a new Wolverine who's actually 5'8" and he's stockier as well. But I do think, we are so excited when we know these characters so well, how they're going to interact with other Marvel members, but we need to clean the slate.
Yep.
The timeline is so convoluted at this stage that just needs to unwind itself as well. But I'm all about the recast. I just want to see Rogue properly. I want to see her team up with Gambit. I want to know what those interpersonal relationships are like, because that's so exciting for me, for X-Men.
Well, Maude, you bring up the most enticing notion of all for me, and I think for a lot of fans, and we want to hear your comments on this too, is the characters you're most excited to see interact from the X-Men, from the MCU, all hanging out together. But Sharonda, how do we get the X-Men properly into the MCU? Because there is going to be some sort of timeline fudging you have to do, right? Because it's not like these mutants existed in this New York school and they just weren't ready for all these battles that the Avengers fought. So do you do like a multiverse timeline thing here? What's your approach?
I mean, for me, how I would like to see the X-Men introduced, and just kind of piggybacking off of Maude with Rogue, is I would love to see the interaction with Rogue and Captain Marvel play out on the screen, because there is a big story with them of when Rogue kind of consumes Carol's powers.
That's why she can fly.
And so then for a certain point in time, Carol is actually chilling with the X-Men. So I think that's a really perfect storyline to reintroduce like this new X-Men franchise through Disney that I would love to see play out.
Well, the other thing is, look at what Sony did with the latest Spider-Man movie, Homecoming. So they didn't tell the origin story again because, quite frankly, twice was enough with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. But they also didn't wipe the slate clean. They didn't pretend that the first 5 Spider-Man movies didn't exist. They just moved forward.
Well, they used Iron Man. They used Iron Man as the catalyst point, as the Padawan master kind of.
But they didn't wipe the slate clean. So when it comes to rebooting X-Men for the MCU, you don't really need to reboot it from scratch. You could just move a little forward.
But the timeline.
But it's okay.
Ow, the more you think about it, the more it hurts.
Well, that's why you just got to move forward with it.
Okay.
I think that's why the best advice is you do have to let this sleeping dog lie for a little bit. We need to let this bear hibernate for a good 5 years. And that's what Kevin Feige had said, is that you need to let this thing go away, and then we need to develop the MCU, because look, there's a lot of questions in the MCU as well, and how we're going to move forward with those characters that we know, but we've also lost some. So how are we going to pick the pieces up from Endgame, and then we'll worry about getting the X-Men and possibly Fantastic Four.
There you go.
And whoever else.
But I want to see a scene with Nightcrawler and Spider-Man so bad.
Oh my God,
How
just like
good.
Amazing Spider-Man 162, Spider-Man and Nightcrawler. That was an awesome issue.
All right, so Sharonda's going with a rogue Captain Marvel meeting,
Love
maybe.
it.
Maude's thinking Spider-Man and Nightcrawler.
would
Scott,
love
do you have
that.
any other matchups and any other unifications, any character from the X-Men that you can't wait to see how they handle this person in the MCU?
When it comes around to it, so, one thing that was severely missing from Dark Phoenix, even if it was just for like a quick 5-second cameo like he had in First Class, is Wolverine.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with Wolverine as they move forward? Obviously, they're going to recast him. Hugh Jackman's been there, done that. Good luck recasting that role. But I know we're going to wait, but I am excited and very, curious to see what they do with Wolverine in the MCU.
And can we get a Wolverine and Deadpool buddy team up, please?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I want to see Deadpool and Hulk, but I think in about 5 years you're going to be watching an MCU movie. I don't know which one, but maybe there's a post-credit scene where there's a wheelchair rolling in and you see the X, and it's like we get very excited. That is all to come, and hopefully we'll have an after show to talk about that movie whenever that happens. In the meantime, that wraps us here today. I want to thank my incredible panel for talking all things X-Men, Dark Phoenix, and thank y'all for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and hit that bell. That'll give you an alert every time we drop a new after show. Comment, tell us your thoughts on Dark Phoenix, and we'll see y'all next time on the after show.